Stick to just one question. Thank you very much. Secretary of State.
Thank you, Jenny. Good evening. It's a real pleasure to welcome Mykhailo to his first UDCG today and his first UDCG press conference. Mykhailo, I hope the pledges we have made here today at the UDCG you take as a demonstration of our total commitment to stand with Ukraine. Next week marks 4 years since Putin launched his full-scale attack on Ukraine, a war he thought he'd win in a week, and a war he has now been fighting in Ukraine for longer than Russia and Germany were fighting during the Second World War. 4 years on, Ukraine's forces are hitting targets deep into Russia, inflicting high casualty rates on parts of the front line and even retaking territory. The Ukrainians, both military and civilian alike, are fighting today with the same courage and defiance as they did in February 2022. And of course, we all welcome progress made by the US to broker peace, and no one welcomes those efforts more than Ukraine. But for now, the war continues. Russian aggression is escalating, and Putin's brutal missile and drone attacks continue to pound Ukrainian cities, Ukrainian civilians, not just the military front line. And so our mission at the UDC remains: support Ukraine in the fight for now and help secure the peace for tomorrow. And the four of us have worked hard to ensure that we begin this big year for Ukraine with big pledges to Ukraine. We can save lives, we can pressure Putin, and we can agree peace, but only if we step up together. And so together, I can confirm at today's UDCG, we pledged a total of $35 billion worth of new military aid for Ukraine. For our part, the UK is spending the highest level of support for military aid for Ukraine ever. And at this UDCG, I announced a new £500 million package of urgent air defence support for Ukraine, President Zelensky's top priority. Today, the UDCG sent a very clear message to Putin. We're more united and more determined than ever. We will step up military assistance to Ukraine. We will step up pressure on Russia, and we want to make 2026 the year this war ends, the year we secure peace. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, once more from me a warm welcome, Mykhailo. You have added your own touch to your very first meeting of the UDCG. This is precisely what I expected you to do. The two of us have known each other since 2024. Back then, I visited you at your Ministry of Digital Transformation in Kiev. In 12 days, ladies and gentlemen, it will be exactly 4 years since Russia's brutal war and unlawful attack on Ukraine began. And one thing is certain: Ukraine can continue to count on our support. Mykhailo, among other things, you plan to implement 2 projects. Germany will make every effort to support you in this. One thing we will contribute to is I'm sorry. I'm not the elder brother of Joe Cocker, I caught a cold. One thing we will contribute to is what is referred to as a city dome project. It is concerned with the improvement of air defense above Ukraine's metropolitan areas that are under threat. Air defense is one of the priorities of our support anyway. Germany has given away 5 of its 12 Patriot systems, more than a third. We are consistently delivering IRST systems, guided missiles and ammunition of various kinds. Another innovative project of yours we are participating in, Mykhailo, is the further development of regiments to continuously disrupt Russian frontline attacks using state-of-the-art uncrewed systems. Altogether, we have earmarked a total of 11.5 billion euros for the support of Ukraine in 2026. In addition to air defense and our continued support with deep strike drones, we will provide funding for long-distance artillery ammunition. What is important to us is that supporting nations' industry closely cooperate with Ukraine's the industry as well. I'm therefore very pleased that the production of state-of-the-art Ukrainian drones has just begun in Germany as part of a joint venture. Ukraine needs, we heard it earlier, at least $60 billion from its supporters this year to defend itself. John, Mykhailo and I, together with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, have written a letter to our partners last week. We emphatically called upon all countries in the Ukraine contact group to provide additional support. We have seen the result at today's UDCG. John just highlighted it, 35 billion euros are the result. And when it comes to air defense, I decided to suggest spontaneously at the end of our session that Germany is going to deliver 5 additional interceptor missiles called PAC-3 to Ukraine if other supporting countries donate a total of 30 PAC-3. We all know it's about saving life. It's a matter of days and not a matter of weeks or months. So, and I can tell you we are on a good path. We have some announcement. Not everyone is already approved, but I'm very optimistic that we achieve at 30 plus 5, and I'm very grateful for that. Thank you very much for that.
Mr. Fedorov.
Всім доброго дня. По-перше, хотів би подякувати за сьогоднішній Рамштайн. Він був один із найбільш успішних, напевно, за весь час. Хочу сказати, що звучала цифра підтверджених 35 мільярдів допомоги на цей рік. Ще додалося допомога, вже вона сягає приблизно...
We are missing the translation from Ukraine to English for getting it finally. Now.
Can repeat in English.
Okay.
Да.
Ukraine.
Ще раз хочу подякувати нашим партнерам за допомогу. Вони сьогодні, от всі, хто сьогодні тут присутні, Марк, і Джон, і Борис, вони боролися за кожен цент допомоги, за кожну ракету, за життя українців. І дійсно сьогодні була важлива ініціатива щодо збору ракет зі стоків Європи щодо ПАК-3, тому що це важливо, критично сьогодні для нашої країни. Я дякую за цю ініціативу. Я сподіваюся, що ми побачимо дуже скоро результат цієї ініціативи. Але сьогодні ми почули анонсів на майже 38 мільярдів доларів. І це велика частина цих анонсів, які сьогодні були нові. Вони йдуть якраз на систему протиповітряної оборони, на дрони, на розвиток дронно-штурмових підрозділів, на Deep Strike, на дрони-перехоплювачі. Тобто якість і структура допомоги, вона змінюється на очах. І ми бачимо, що в цьому році в рамках візії, задачі, які поставив перед нами президент, побудувати Міністерство оборони, яке здатне зупинити ворога в небі, на землі, на морі, працювати проти економіки Росії, щоб вона не змогла фінансувати цю війну. То сьогоднішні всі анонси, вони якраз направлені на досягнення цих цілей. Тому я дуже дякую всім нашим партнерам. Перед нами великі виклики. Путін не може нас перемогти на землі, тому він воює проти цивільного населення, тому він запускає десятки балістичних ракет по нашій критичній інфраструктурі, по нашій енергетичній структурі. Але ми рухаємося далі і зробимо все для того, щоб боротися проти кожної ракети, проти кожного дрону, отримати необхідні ресурси для того, щоб захистити українців. Ще раз вам дякую за ці кілька днів роботи, які були тут вже в цих стінах, але ви працювали кожного дня всі попередні місяці для того, щоб ми могли тут сьогодні анонсувати цей результат Рамштайну. Тому дякую ще раз вам.
Well, good evening, and as Boris and John have already noted, this was a very productive meeting of Ukraine Defense Contact Group. Mykhailo, again, welcome to NATO headquarters. Great to have you on board. Let me say that allies announced hundreds of millions more for Pearl, providing, as you know, more essential US equipment that Ukraine urgently needs to defend. And I want to thank the United Kingdom, Iceland, Norway, Sweden, Lithuania for their contributions, and many others have announced that they are actively considering over the next couple of days and weeks additional contributions. When I was in Ukraine last week, I saw again, firsthand, the chaos and destruction that Russia continues to inflict on the people of Ukraine. And to defend itself against such attacks, Ukraine indeed urgently needs more air defense. My message to participants today was clear. Ukraine needs our support now more than ever. And we must also support the vision of Minister Fedorov when it comes to 2026 and to make Ukraine as strong as possible in the fight. And I'm urging all nations to step up their support and to share that burden. There are also many hard at work to ensure that the bloodshed stops and that there is a lasting end, a lasting peace to this war. Our continued support to Ukraine ensures they can defend today, but also will be able to deter and defend any future aggression. And we are committed to keeping this support as strong as possible, now and in the future.
Thank you very much. The first question is to Deborah Haynes, Sky News.
Thank you, Deborah Haynes, Sky News. It's a question for our Defence Secretary. The US has come very clearly with a message that, while it's not abandoning the alliance, Europe needs to be in the lead in defending this continent. And allies like Germany, the Baltics, the Nordics are clearly doing that with action. But for the UK, that timeline to hit the 5% isn't until 2035. And you haven't even yet released the defence investment plan. Are you failing to meet the moment? And if I might just ask, given the headlines in the news today, it'd be remiss not to. The Times and The Sun are reporting that the UK's ambassador to NATO has triggered a diplomatic row by moving his young Italian girlfriend into the official residence. It's the same person who in a previous role left classified documents at a bus stop. Do you still have confidence in your ambassador? And just for the Ukrainian minister, could you give a sense, please, of the effect on Russian operations on the battlefield of this monumental move for the Starlink terminals to be switched off for the troops in Ukraine, for the Russian troops? Thank you.
First, the timeline of 5% that all 32 nations of NATO agreed last year is 2035, and the UK will meet that commitment. The UK has always met its commitments to funding NATO. The UK is putting more money into defence this year than it has done for 15 years, £270 billion in this Parliament alone. This is the largest increase since the end of the Cold War. Today is not just a question of what the UK is doing to step up our contribution to European security, but what allies are doing together. That was the discussion at NATO defence ministers this morning. It's been the discussion about the way we step up for Ukraine at the UDCG this afternoon. And on the defence investment plan, we're working flat out to complete this. This is the first time for 18 years that in the UK we have taken a line-by-line approach to building up our future plans. And we've also been dealing with a defence programme that under the last government, left 18 months ago, was hugely overcommitted, was underfunded, and was in many parts unsuited to the threats that we now face. And on the question of the reports, I'm not going to comment on those reports, but I will say that the UK expects the highest standards of all its ambassadors for this country. And my focus as the Defence Secretary today has been to work with allies to demonstrate that we can step up to support Ukraine in the fight. We've done that at the UDCG this afternoon, and that we can step up with European nations within NATO to forge a new deal for European security, and we've done that this morning.
Thank you for your question. We left Russia without communication these days, and I think it's a good opportunity to take strategic initiative for our armed forces. And I'd like to say that it's only the beginning of our asymmetric activities.
Thank you. Next, we'll come to Katharina Kroll, Deutsche Welle.
The US has indicated that its weapon stocks for Ukraine are not unlimited. What happens then? And the question, what would a possible failure of the German-French fighter jet project mean for European cooperation?
On the first question, I can assure you that the US has made clear that to the tune of 12 to 15 billion this year, they can supply critical material for Ukraine, which only the US is able to supply at such levels of massiveness. So that's very good news.
Well, in the first place, we did not yet arrive at that point. It is not just, it has not yet failed. We are still working, and the Chancellor and President Macron are still in discussions and negotiations about that. But even if that happened, that would not be the end of the world or the end of the European defense industrial cooperation or the end of the German-French friendship.
Next question will take an Ukrainian outlet, ICTV, Volodymyr Runets.
Well, thank you for this opportunity, Volodymyr Runets, ICTV. Secretary Healey, the question is for you. We met about a month ago in Kiev when you arrived there, and you saw the outcome of yet another missile attack on Kiev and its residents. But my question is, you mentioned then that the UK is going to produce some drones and missiles for Ukraine to be able to defend itself. Could you give us more details? What rockets, what missiles are they? What type? When are they going to be in Ukraine? The Ukrainian army could use them. Are there going to be any limitations on the use of those missiles and things like that? Thank you.
Supplied into Ukraine over 100,000 drones to support the fight against Putin. I think you're referring to a groundbreaking program that we are joining with Ukraine to deliver, in which the innovation of Ukraine interceptors is taken up, developed further by British technology centres and then mass-produced using our industrialised techniques in the UK, and it will deliver within months thousands of drones interceptors back into Ukraine to help its fight today.
Johnny Bill, BBC.
Thank you. If I could ask, sorry. An attack. If I could ask the UK Defence Secretary, you've announced today that the UK is contributing to the Pearl programme, which was set up, I think, last summer. So I just want to know why it's taken you so long to join up to that scheme. And you could argue why so little, because I think Germany's given more than £500 million already. And I would like to ask Minister Fedorov, if I could, I just want to know if the scheme's working, because I think we heard from President Zelensky saying at one stage you were running out of Patriot interceptors. We know that the US is focused on a potential military action in the Middle East with Iran, and that it's had to beef up its air defenses in the region to defend its own bases. Are you worried that this scheme isn't going to work, that especially when it comes to Patriot batteries, you just aren't going to get them? You aren't going to get the interceptors you need, and you're not getting them. Thank you.
So the UK this year is funding more than ever into military aid to support Ukraine. Everything that we do is to respond to the priorities that Ukraine set out for their air defense, for their drones, for their abilities to strike deep. We've been supporting Ukraine in some ways, in ways that no other nation has. Part of the most urgent requirement now is for air defense support. We're doing that in a number of UK ways, but a contribution to the Pearl packages is also required by Ukraine now, and so we are making that contribution today too.
Ми працюємо зараз зі Сполученими Штатами над програмою підтримки України щодо створення нових систем, щодо контрактування ракет ПАК-2, ПАК-3 для Петріотів. Ми розуміємо, що в світі є зараз дефіцит цих ракет і самих систем, але наш президент робить неймовірну роботу для того, щоб ми отримували ці системи, ми отримували нові ракети. Сьогодні наші колеги, Борис, він чудову ініціативу проявив, яка, я впевнений, допоможе нам в найближчий час отримати ще додаткові ракети ПАК-3, не враховуючи ті, які ми отримали через Pearl. І сьогодні важливо сказати, що тільки сьогодні було анонсовано більше, ніж додатково 500 мільйонів програму Pearl. І Pearl працює, і допомагає нам отримати ракети ПАК-3. Ви бачите, що Росія запускає за одну атаку і 20 може балістичних ракет запустити. Тобто це десятки ракет. І я думаю, що жодна система в світі не готова до протидії такій кількості балістичних ракет. Тому наша задача – шукати можливості отримувати в першу чергу ракети ПАК-3, ПАК-2. Звичайно, потрібні додаткові системи для того, щоб захистити наші міста. Також потрібно Європі почати виробляти більше ракет для того, щоб використовувати діючі системи, такі як САМ-Ті, наприклад, де нам не вистачає ракет. І перебудова воєнних індустрій Європи – це важливе питання, тому що ми сьогодні отримуємо велику кількість IRIS-T, дякую вам за цю підтримку, ракет до IRIS-T. Ми працюємо також з Великобританією щодо отримання ракет, і сьогодні і вчора був анонсований новий пакет щодо ракет. Але залишається виклик балістичних ракет. І тому світ повинен попрацювати, і Україна разом з світом, для того, щоб ми виробляли більше ракет ПАК-3, для того, щоб, або схожих ракет, для того, щоб захищатися від подібних атак.
Stefan Israel, Table Media.
Yes, Stefan Israel, Europe Table. Secretary General, you mentioned a few countries who announced pledges today, but if I'm not mistaken, bigger ones are not among them, like France, Italy, Spain. Sorry? UK. Yeah, okay. Big. But still, burden sharing seems to be quite unbalanced. So what can you do more to convince these countries? And then if I may, another question, because you so often praised President Trump for having broken the deadlock with Moscow, but isn't it a moment for Europeans to say that these negotiations are a little bit also a cover-up for Russia to intensify its attacks on Ukraine? Thank you.
On your first question, as I said, a couple of countries, and I mentioned the United Kingdom, a big ally, a big economy, but also Iceland, Norway, Sweden, Lithuania made announcements today. But we also know that other nations are actively at this moment discussing this in their cabinets, in their parliaments, so I expect further announcements soon, and there might also be some bigger economies there. And of course, we will keep on working on the burden sharing. That's absolutely crucial. We cannot have too few countries doing the bulk, and everybody acknowledges that, and I'm cautiously optimistic that we will get a better burden sharing than we are seeing currently. When it comes to the peace process, as I said repeatedly, I'm absolutely convinced that if President Trump would not have broken the deadlock with Putin, this whole process would not have started. It's not easy to bring a war like this to an end. It takes time. It takes more time than you want. But I know that the US team, Marco Rubio and Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, they are all day in, day out working on this under the leadership of President Trump. They are constantly updating their Canadian and European allies. That is, I think, very important. So this is really a coordinated effort with Ukraine to bring this war to a lasting end in a way that Putin will never ever attack again. We all have this clear goal in mind. It should not be a repeat of Budapest or a repeat of the Minsk agreement. It should be such that Putin knows if I attack again after a long-term ceasefire / a real peace deal, if I attack again, the reaction will be devastating.
Interfax, Valeria Poroshenko.
Thank you for this opportunity. Valeria Poroshenko, Interfax, Ukraine News Agency. My first question to the Secretary General. Can you please describe the role of the USA in the Ramstein? Because the leading role is now in other countries' hands? And other question to our Minister, Mykhailo Fedorov, can you please describe projects that you announced to partners in Ramstein, that you said that 18 projects you're gonna present? And the third question to Boris Pistorius, thanks for your support. You sent letters to partners for increasing support for air defense. Did you get any feedback actually on this immediate air plan? Thanks.
The Ramstein is now being led by the two defense ministers of Germany and the United Kingdom since, I think, February last year, and very successfully. And it's not just the two leading this, there is also a whole back office of the Germans and the Brits together with NATO and Ukraine to make sure that Ukraine gets what it needs. There is the comprehensive Ukraine requirement list agreed by SACEUR, the Supreme Allied Commander, listing all the needs Ukraine has. And then to the role of the United States, they provide from that GIRL, so that comprehensive Ukraine requirement list, they provide what only basically they can provide, which is this PEARL, the prioritized Ukraine requirement list. And this is essential support for Ukraine coming from US stockpiles, paid for by allies in Europe, our partners like Australia, New Zealand, and of course Canada, an ally within NATO. So this is how it works, and I must say that is successful. I mean, we are able to supply Ukraine with what it needs to stay in the fight as strong as possible.
They were part of preparing for today's UDCG, a UDCG which has pledged a total of $35 billion in extra military aid for Ukraine. A successful UDCG, but more to do to meet the requirements that Ukraine have to stay strong in the fight.
If I understand your question correctly, you asked for those Patriot Pack 3 and Pack 2 and my initiative. Yeah. Well, we did get some announcements which has been approved and confirmed in the session, and some other announcement which needs to be approved at home, which is quite normal. So I'm very optimistic for a relevant number of Pack 3 and Pack 2.
Ми сьогодні дійсно презентували конкретні проекти, які пов'язані з нашою візією цього року, починаючи від підтримки дронно-штурмових підрозділів до проєктів розвитку артилерії з лазерним наведенням, щодо базового рівня забезпечення бригад або розвитку Deep Strike дронів і українських ракет. Тобто ми розбили всі, скажімо, наші проекти на конкретні пропозиції, які пов'язані з цілями війни. І ми пояснили партнерам, ми хочемо в кожному домені війни зробити конкретно ось це, і якщо ви підтримуєте ці проекти, вони допоможуть досягнути нам цілей. А якщо ми будемо успішні в досягненні наших цілей, значить успішними ви будете також, тому що ви отримуєте дані, ви отримуєте досвід безцінний, ви зможете трансформувати свої воєнні доктрини ваших країн, і таким чином це покращить наші відносини і зробить з наших відносин дійсно він-він відносини, коли проекти, які ми реалізовуємо, вони посилюють і нас, і наших партнерів. Тому це була велика кількість різних проєктів. Деякі анонси ви зараз вже чули, що буде підтримка і по дронам збільшилася, це стосується діпстрайків і базового рівня забезпечення, в тому числі по дронно-штурмовим підрозділам, які досить ефективно працюють. Також будуть певні анонси щодо артилерії з лазерним наведенням, тобто ми плануємо збільшити постачання в цій артилерії, точніше отримування від наших партнерів цього виду артилерії. Тому я вважаю, що це був такий перший формат, коли ми показували через проекти можливості підтримки нашої країни. І я впевнений, що це спрацює і партнери відчують цей результат також покращення своїх систем оборони.
Thank you. We are very nearly out of time, so I'll take two more questions. The first from Lily Bayer, Reuters.
Thank you very much. I'm Lily from Reuters. I have two questions for Minister Fedorov. The first is, could you share with us which Ukrainian manufacturers or what kinds of weapons have received approval in the first batch of Ukrainian companies authorized to export? And what is your estimate for how much weapons Ukraine can export this year in dollar terms? And the second question is for you and maybe for the others on stage as well. Do you expect a new large-scale Russian offensive this spring? Do you have any indications of that? Thank you.
Анонсував можливість відкриття експорту для нашої країни, для виробників. І в найближчі дні вже будуть новини щодо конкретних результатів. Дійсно, всі партнери піднімають це питання експорту, всі хочуть долучитися до виробництва українських дронів. Президент скоро анонсує нові продукти, які створені українськими підприємствами і підприємствами наших партнерів. Ви знаєте, вже сьогодні ми говорили про «Октопус», який виготовляється і в Україні, і в Великобританії. Тому зараз сформована комісія, яка відповідає за експорт. Вона підписана указом президента кілька днів тому. І, по суті, новий процес, який є затвердженим, він починає працювати в найближчі дні і тижні. Тому важко спрогнозувати, яка кількість в цьому році буде експорту, тому що сьогодні ми для наших партнерів презентували наш план щодо дронів на цей рік. Ми публічно про це зараз не говоримо, але ми плануємо в цьому році збільшити виробництво дронів і збільшити забезпечення нашого війська дронами. Це стосується всіх типів і видів, і враховуючи доктринальні зміни, які відбуваються на полі бою, нам важливо деякі категорії дронів, які ми виготовляли менше, виробляти тепер більше. Тому, враховуючи анонсований бюджет, який, ще раз хочу сказати, якщо це один з найбільш успішних Рамштайнів щодо анонсу на цей рік фінансування, щодо можливості гнучкого використання європейського кредиту, про який ми також вчора цілий день з європейськими колегами говорили, все це дасть нам відповідь на питання, скільки Україна в цьому році зможе виробити дронів, яких дронів, і після цього паралельно ми будемо розуміти, а що можна експортувати. Тому що в першу чергу українські дрони повинні працювати на потреби українського війська для того, щоб зупинити ворога.
And our very last question is to Lara Jakes.
Hi, Lara Jakes with the New York Times. Minister Fedorov, we've spoken a lot today and here and in other press briefings about the weapons of war and how NATO and allies are helping. I'm just curious as to what you told your partners about Ukraine's efforts to broker a peace and how those talks are going. And specifically, I'm curious as to the Donbass and if Ukraine did receive the security assurances that it has asked for and that have been pledged, would Ukraine withdraw completely from the Donbass without Russia pulling back an equal amount? Thank you.
Дякую за ваше питання. Я сьогодні і нашим партнерам наголошував, що по факту у нас рухаються два треки, які ініціював наш президент. Перший трек – це дипломатичний. Ви знаєте, що відбулося велика кількість кадрових змін в нашій країні. Достатньо посилена команда людей, які ведуть перемовини сьогодні завдяки Сполученим Штатам Америки, європейським колегам і беруть участь у трьохсторонньому форматі. І президент, і вся наша команда, яка веде перемовини, роблять все для того, щоб отримати справедливий мир, і вони працюють над цим 24/7. Наша задача від президента – побудувати систему оборони, яка буде працювати при будь-якому сценарії, для того, щоб ми не залежали від будь-яких перемовин і будь-яких процесів. Тому я сфокусований на цьому, і я вважаю, що це важливий меседж нашим партнерам – інвестувати зараз в виробництво, допомагати нам будувати систему оборони зараз, не сподіватися на різні сценарії, а робити все можливе, що залежить від нас, для того, щоб захиститися від цього зла, яке, по суті, напало на нашу країну і сьогодні воює з цивільним населенням. Ще раз хочу підкреслити, що Росія нічого не може досягнути на полі бою. Вона вже втрачає велику кількість людей, щоб окупувати 1 квадратний кілометр. І тому вона б'є по енергетиці, тому що опалювальний сезон скоро закінчиться. Росія так і не навчилася розуміти українців. З першого дня повномасштабного вторгнення до повномасштабного вторгнення Росія думає, що таким чином може натиснути на українців, але це так не працює. Тому моя вся увага прикута саме до підходу, що нам потрібно побудувати стійку систему оборони.
And I'm afraid that's all we have time for. Thank you very much to the media. Thank you, Secretary General, Ministers.
See you in a minute.
Global economy, we are supporting our established industries in the face of strong headwinds. We have moved to revive our ferrochrome industry and to protect jobs in our steel industry, in our automotive and other sectors which employ hundreds of thousands of South Africans in good quality jobs. Ministers are crunching the numbers on a daily basis, seeking to protect the jobs that could be lost through the decline of these industries that are now facing fierce competition. We are working with businesses and workers to close loopholes in our tariff structure and develop additional measures to protect and grow our manufacturing base. As we protect jobs in vulnerable industries, we remain focused on sectors that will drive future growth. We know that we can create millions of good quality jobs in sectors like agriculture, mining, and services industry, as well as in the green economy. These are areas where we can be more than competitive. We can be the best in the world. Our agricultural sector is expanding rapidly. Already we are the second largest exporter of citrus fruit in the world. We are opening new markets for our exports, from citrus to avocados to maize, livestock, grapes, and wine. Through the blended finance scheme, working with the Land Bank and the commercial banks, we have provided